This video was created by VinylicPuma of VinylicPumaGaming.
So a subscriber wrote me a message on YouTube a little while back asking me to talk about Fallout 4's ending and about which ending will be the canon ending going into the next game. I also figured since we're not 100% sure whether there will be any more DLC for Fallout 4 that will wrap up some of the story, that this is a pretty good idea. Now before we get into this particular video, it really should go without saying, but this video will contain major spoilers to Fallout 4's plot, and I'll also be spoiling the plot a little bit to both Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. Now that you have been warned, we're going to go ahead here and discuss which of the four endings for Fallout 4 will most likely be the canon ending going into either Fallout 5 or the next game in the franchise. But before we get into that, I want to talk about the endings to Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. Now, I think it's pretty much confirmed at this point that Project Purity was activated during the events of Fallout 3, and the Lone Wanderer did not add FEV to the water, which would have killed everyone in the Capital Wasteland. This is based on some in-game dialogue from Deacon and the Railroad. And Raven Rock and the Enclave in general were defeated and don't have the same military presence during the events of Fallout 4 that we at least know of. This is based on some Brotherhood of Steel records in Fallout 4 and is also based on some of the things said by Zealot Richter from the Far Harbor DLC. While I can't 100% guarantee it, based on the fact that the Lone Wanderer isn't mentioned in Fallout 4 at all, it might be safe to say that the good karma ending is the canon ending. So you didn't blow up Megaton, and the Citadel is still intact. Instead, you would have disarmed the bomb in Megaton, you would have blown up the Enclave's mobile crawler, and you activated Project Purity by yourself, and I guess you kind of sacrificed yourself when you entered the control room that was irradiated. Now, generally, the good karma outcomes are canon endings in all of the Fallout games, and based on that, I think we can speculate on the ending for New Vegas. While the karma system exists in New Vegas, it's ultimately replaced by the reputation system. The higher your score is with a certain faction, the better relationship that you have with that faction. Now, Fallout 4 borrowed from this somewhat with how companions approve or disapprove of your actions, and that'll be more important when we start talking about Fallout 4. Now, all of that said, killing like the powder gangers, freeing slaves, and killing evil bandits reward you with positive karma, so I'd say that those actions are canon. Now, unlike Fallout 3, New Vegas also has like 4 different endings, like Fallout 4 does. You can either have an independent New Vegas, or you can have a New Vegas controlled by Mr. House, Caesar's Legion, or the NCR. And of the 4, I would say that siding with the NCR is the least severe option. I think you'll ultimately get an ending where you have a good relationship with the followers of the apocalypse, the Brotherhood of Steel, the Boomers, the Great Khans, even the Enclave remnants, and the NCR. And this means that you'll side with the NCR against Caesar's Legion for the Battle of Hoover Dam. Ultimately, though, it will be interesting to see what Bethesda ultimately declares to be the official canon resolution of Fallout New Vegas. It could even be Caesar's Legion, and that more severe ending would be interesting. Or maybe the ending with Mr. House would also be kind of interesting because it's also relatively severe. However, now it's time to talk about Fallout 4. Like New Vegas, Fallout 4 has 4 major endings. Those are the Institute victory, the Brotherhood victory, the Railroad victory, and the Minutemen victory. Now, at the same time, depending on how you play through the main quest, you can also get some variations of some of the outcomes. This mostly depends on how you decide to proceed with the Institute. If you retrieve the beryllium agitator for them, the Brotherhood becomes permanently hostile, even if you decide to side with another faction entirely. You can also reject Father as your son Sean, which immediately makes the Institute hostile as soon as you leave, and they remain hostile throughout the rest of the game. I would say of the 4 major endings, the Minutemen victory is the most flexible ending. However, it does require you wipe out the Institute. The other 3 endings kill off each respective faction. In other words, the Institute kills off the Brotherhood and the Railroad, the Brotherhood kills off the Railroad and the Institute, and the Railroad kills the Brotherhood and the Institute. And of all 4 factions, the Minutemen can't be destroyed during a quest, even if you want to destroy them. For that reason, it's safe to say that the Minutemen will be around regardless of who you ultimately side with. So I ultimately think whether Bethesda decides to make the Railroad, Brotherhood, Institute, or even the Minutemen the canon victory ending, the Minutemen are probably still going to be around in some capacity. Like I mentioned while I was talking about New Vegas, there's also the issue of which ending is the least severe. Of the 4, I would say it's the Minutemen, followed by the Railroad, the Brotherhood, and then the Institute. And it may also be worth considering companion likes and dislikes as well. Only Dance likes it when you help the Brotherhood. Companions like Kate, Piper, Preston, Nick, and Strong dislike helping the Brotherhood. And it's also worth mentioning that McCready and Hancock, as well as Kate, Piper, Preston, Nick, and Strong, don't like it when you actually join the Brotherhood of Steel. Now, Dance, McCready, Piper, and Preston like it when you help the Minutemen. Only Kate dislikes it. And some companions like Dance and Hancock dislike it when you arm the Minutemen with artillery guns during the Old Guns side quest, but that may not be as big of a deal. Now, Curie and Piper like it when you help the Railroad. Only Kate dislikes it. Now, with that all in mind, my theory is that the canon ending will ultimately be to side with the Minutemen. However, the Brotherhood will be wiped out and the Railroad will be most likely preserved. And here are some of my reasons for that. For the most part, the Railroad and the Minutemen have the most positive relationship between all factions, and the majority of companions that you can have approve of helping the Minutemen and the Railroad. Key companions like Piper, Nick Valentine, and Preston Garvey all seem to like both factions. All also don't like the Brotherhood of Steel and hate the Institute. Now, while you have some companions like Hancock and McCready that don't normally enjoy helping people all the time, they generally do like the Minutemen. However, it is worth mentioning that McCready would actually like it if you kill the Railroad. I'm not entirely sure why that is. However, Piper, Preston, Nick, Curie, and even Codsworth hate it when you kill Desdemona, leader of the Railroad. Based on the quest emphasis for the game, I think the Minutemen are the most likely choice as well. Bethesda makes helping Preston and the Minutemen fairly difficult to miss on your first playthrough. Now that leaves a couple of different questions, so I'll go through them as I can. You may be asking, what about the Railroad instead of the Minutemen? Now, it's definitely possible as well as plausible. Following the Railroad to the letter actually puts the player directly on trajectory to wipe out both the Institute and the Brotherhood of Steel. Following the Minutemen specifically can poise the player to also ally with the Brotherhood and even the Institute depending on what actions you choose. In terms of technical capability, the Railroad is sophisticated enough to wipe out both factions. The Minutemen, on the other hand, aren't a particularly cohesive fighting force, and they lack the technology to really take them out on their own, in my opinion. Even though you're able to do it in the game. However, the Minutemen easily have more manpower as they can recruit common wastelanders. And it may be what the canon ultimately ends up being is that the Railroad and the Minutemen wipe out the Institute and the Brotherhood. Sort of a collaboration, if you will. At the same time, I think if Bethesda made the Railroad ending canon, many fans might be upset. On Steam in particular, if you look at the global achievements, you'll find that 15.3% of players complete completed nuclear family for the Institute questline, while 8.3% completed Rocket's Red Glare for the Railroad questline. While I can't say what Xbox or PlayStation are, they may also follow a similar trend. And in case you're curious, 12.5% of people completed Ad Victoriam, which puts you on path for finishing the Brotherhood questline. And overall, it just seems unlikely that Bethesda would make the least popular faction in the game the ending canon. Now you may be asking, why not the Brotherhood of Steel? While the Brotherhood does have morally okay characters like Dance, Scribe Halen, and Proctor Ingram, the Brotherhood's principles ultimately lead them to do terrible things. The Brotherhood will eventually want you to kill Virgil solely because he's a super mutant. The Brotherhood will eventually want you to kill Desdemona and the Railroad, a choice that the vast majority of the available companions in Fallout 4 absolutely hate. Only McCready actually likes it. The Brotherhood also dislike ghouls. While everyone ultimately kills feral ghouls, Dance doesn't like Hancock or the Vault-Tec rep from the very beginning of the game. The Brotherhood also actively shoot everyone when you enter the Institute. Civilians aren't spared. The Brotherhood also actively encourage you to kill Paladin Dance, despite the fact that he was loyal to the Brotherhood and its principles, and that was just because he is a synth. Now, in my mind, these acts that are performed by the Brotherhood are too severe for a canonical ending. As previous games have shown us, the severe ending is usually never canon. Now you may be asking, why not the Institute? Now, if I were to pick of one of the 4 endings to be canon, I'd actually pick the Institute. I think it would make Fallout 4 stand out much more than the rest of the games in the franchise. As I mentioned earlier, it seems like more people than you might expect completed the Institute questline than the Brotherhood and Railroad questlines, especially when you compare how many people completed Nuclear Family to completing key Brotherhood and Railroad quests on Steam. Now, the Institute questline is really a story of a parent and child reuniting to take on the world. Depending on the sole survivor's worldview, they could easily side with the Institute and help Father. After all, the world has gone to shit after nuclear war. That said, I don't think Bethesda would pick the Institute, as the actions they perform leading up to and while you're a member are extremely severe. They have committed countless atrocities, replacing people with synths, destroying the railroad, slavery of synths, inciting fear-mongering amongst the people of the Commonwealth, destroying the Brotherhood of Steel, and the list goes on. So I guess to wrap everything up here, like I said, it's probably ultimately going to be the Minutemen, but based on the preferences of available companions, the general trend among the games tend to favor high karma endings, and Bethesda's emphasis on the Minutemen faction at the very beginning of the game, I think it's very likely it's going to be the Minutemen. In my personal opinion, I think that's sort of dull. I would have liked to see an ending where you side with the Institute and that ultimately be canon, mostly because of the relationship between the parent and child, and I think it would be less cliche for a Fallout game, especially since you're siding with this like maniacally evil organization in a Fallout game, and for that to be canon and how it would affect games going forward could be really interesting, and overall, it would really buck the trend in my opinion. Anyway guys, that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, and as always, take care and I'll see y'all next time.